Good afternoon to all of you. The research is sustaining the image of the city, what matters more, and investigation in the city of Colombo. Cities around the world are constantly transforming its urban dynamics. This transformation is physically visible as you can see the construction of high-rises or shifting neighborhood characteristics, new trendy commercial district, and infrastructure facilities. And the most familiar example for us is the city of Colombo. Preceding is encouraging a business-friendly environment, changing the city form of the business capital. You can see the difference within a century, how the skyline of Colombo has added new elements to its form. From 1990s to now, the total floor space of Colombo Municipal Council composes an average of 22% of buildings and more than 25 meters tall. In our context, we can take as mid or high-rise buildings, and more changes are like this to be expected in future projects like Preceding Colombo. The transforming city environment also changes the city image held by its inhabitants. But what's the importance of understanding the impact of changing physical environment on the image of the city? When the city image influences the inhabitants' experience in the city, it helps them with orientation, wayfinding, and emotional security. So the changes in the environment may have both progressive and adverse impacts. It may cause unresponsive environments, leads to poor satisfaction, or it's a factor that influences attractiveness or the identity of place. Understanding the image will be helpful in planning and designing user-friendly, durable, and sustainable cities. We know what composes in the image of the city. This descriptive study in the city image was from Colombo in 1960, where he described 5 elements that compose the image of the city: nodes, paths, edges, district landmarks, and people navigate in a large-scale environment using these elements. This work was followed by many scholarly work later, and those early studies is a way of understanding the city image in an architectural or more perceivable aspect. But later on, there came studies in the subject of environmental psychology, where the structural aspects of the city image was discussed, which were more amenable to the control of urban planners and designers. Among them, there is a theory called spatial reference points. Memory has a limited capacity to capture every information about a large-scale environment or a city, so the mind schematizes such knowledge. Spatial reference points become the core elements that structure the city image, and we give judgments on other elements referring to those core points. For an example, if somebody asks you where the basic building is located, you might say it's behind the library building. So you use the library building as a reference point and describe the location of the TCP building. We are familiar with today's reference points more than the other elements of the city because of variety of personal and impersonal details. We can describe this using the interiorization process using a SIRN model. This external environment includes physical and social political transformation in the environment. So if we go back to the library, you are more familiar with the library building because you might have used it many times, or it's because of the staircase in front of the building or because of its location. Now we use it and have structurally the other elements referring to this core point. Using this SIRN model in 2004, Munasinghe developed a conceptual model of image of a place. This image is a developing process and its composition changes with the internal changes of the individuals, and the changes take place in the external environment, physical, social, political environment. If the person B here is more than 50 years old, he or she might have witnessed the early construction of the Trade Center BOC. And so the city, when the 7-story Colombo building was the tallest building in the city of Colombo. But person H here, maybe he is just 14 years old, And all he knows is the news he or she hears about the Lotus Tower or the port city. So the person B and person H's cognition is in a development process caused by this internalization. So in order to understand the vast changing environment and what matters in people's perception in order to construct a responsive, attractive, and sustainable city, the study investigates the impact of transforming cities on the city image, adapting spatial reference points theory, and the conceptual model of image of the place. The research is based on 3 questions in order to achieve the above objective. The first one is what specific elements in the city act as spatial reference points. The second one is what differences are evident in such spatial references across the different groups. And the third one is what changes can be witnessed in the structure of the image. The data was collected from 3 minutes-long interviews because the spatial elements we can recall within a small reaction time has the possibility of becoming reference points in our image. The 150 participants were asked what comes to their mind within the name of Colombo, with the name of Colombo. And the analysis was done using the recalling frequencies of the physical elements they could recall, and they analyzed across age groups to understand the change in city image. This figure shows the results of the overall observation. As you can see, the most recalled elements is called face grain, recalled by 26% of the sample. And then you can see this shows, and then there is Lotus Tower, Port Railway Station, you have Mahadev Park, and so on. And this shows that dominant elements are landscapes, open spaces, transportation nodes, and tall buildings. City. And to understand the dominant elements or the spatial reference points of different inhabitant groups and the changes that we can witness in the city, we have analyzed them across the age groups. There is a shift from the reference point from the age groups under 15 to the age groups more than 50. And the dominant element of the eldest image are Cargill Miller's building, Goldface Hotel, Goldface Green, and Selinco building, while the youngesters has recalled Lotus Tower or Mahadev Park. But the important point is that the larger open spaces, Goldface Green has become a dominant element or a special reference points in all the 4 groups. Here the analysis of the 10 most recalled elements across the 4 age groups, and element like Goldface Green has been recalled by all the 4 groups. But the elements like Lotus Tower, you see all the younger groups have recalled it compared to the elders, but the buildings as Goldface Hotel, elders has recalled it more than the other 3 groups. And here the Port Railway Station, CMC, and World Trade Center has been dominant elements of the category of 26 to 50 compared to the other groups. The analysis showed that people are more familiar to the places which are more in the observable ground level or pedestrian level. Even though the construction nodes are huge in terms of height and bulk, or face the elements which have the quality like form singularity or using density has dominated the city image. There are open spaces, node of transportation, buildings with unique temples, shapes, and surfaces. We can observe that there was a shift in the city image. We see that dominant elements of the youngesters was Lotus Tower, while that one we say it was Cargill Miller's or Selinco building. But again, those elements of the elders recalled are the buildings which are well known and intensely used and significant, just like the publicity the Lotus Tower has nowadays. And the major findings that we can contribute to the sustainable planning and urban design process. The first one is the importance of appropriate organization of spatial elements in the ground level, and the structure of image of the city depends more on elements that can form singularity and unity in the city. And the third one is that high-rise elements are not necessarily in making a significant impact on the city image. But this study has many limitations. The first one is the theory used to examine the research question oriented in physical elements. We have neglected the factors like the location or the frequency of the encounter. And the second one is the limited sample of 150 inhabitants due to time limitation. And this is the presentation. Thank you.